You'd pass him on a quiet road and never look twice. But 2 months later, his bones would surface in the place he loved most. He wasn't famous, he wasn't flashy, just a 56-year-old cattle and sheep farmer from County Kerry. The kind of man who wore the same orange wool hat every day, stopped for a roll and a coffee, then disappeared into the hills with the sunrise. But on the morning of Thursday, March 20th, something broke that routine. Michael Gaine walked into Centra in Kenmare. He smiled, bought phone credit, picked up a sandwich. At exactly 9:48 in the morning, he walked out the door and vanished. No calls, no alarms, no struggle, just silence. And 2 months later, his remains were found cut up and buried deep in a slurry tank on the very land he farmed all his life. This isn't just a story about a man who went missing. It's the unraveling of a quiet life and the terrifying truth that someone wanted him gone. Michael Gaine wasn't just from Kerry, he was part of it. Born and raised in the quiet town of Kenmare, he grew up with boots in the mud, the scent of cattle in the air, and the rhythm of the seasons shaping his every day. From a young age, Michael followed in the footsteps of generations before him. The land was never just dirt to him. It was legacy, family, purpose. By his mid-50s, he was running Carrick East, a 1,000-acre farm stretched out near Moll's Gap, rugged, windswept, and breathtaking. He raised sheep, cared for cattle, fixed machinery with calloused hands. Every hill and gatepost had his story etched into it. Those who knew him called him gentle, kind, a quiet soul with a steady presence. Never flashy, never loud, just dependable, solid, the kind of man who'd give you his time but never asked for yours. He shared that farm with his mother, Sheila, for many years. Her passing in February left a silence in the house that even the dogs could feel. Friends said it hit him hard, though Michael never said much. He simply kept working, kept walking the land, just like he always had. And then there was Janice, his wife, his best friend. She came from Jakarta, and somehow their paths crossed in Kenmare. Their love wasn't flashy either. It was the kind that just fit. They built a life on that farm. A quiet life, a good life. Michael didn't chase drama. He lived by rhythm, by ritual, by land. Until one morning that rhythm broke so completely, so silently that no one heard it until it was too late. Michael Gaine's life moved in quiet, deliberate rhythm. He was the kind of man whose days were stitched together by repetition, by early mornings, muddy boots, and honest work. Every task had its place. Every hour had its duty. Most mornings began the same. He'd throw on his usual clothes, blue jeans, a black fleece zipped to the collar, and that familiar orange woolly hat. By mid-morning, he'd drive into Kenmare and stop at the Centra on Killarney Road. It was never a long visit. He'd buy a roll, maybe a drink, sometimes phone credit. He'd chat briefly with the staff, polite, warm, but never one to linger. He was known there, regular, predictable. That's where the last confirmed sighting comes in. On Thursday, March 20th, at exactly 9:48 in the morning, Michael was caught on CCTV inside Centra. He looked relaxed, calm. He said, "I'll see you later." Then he walked out and climbed into his bronze Toyota RAV4. From there, he was expected to return to Carrick East, his 1,000-acre farm nestled near Moll's Gap. But he never showed. He never fed the animals, never called anyone, never finished his day. Michael's life was built around land and loyalty. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't reckless. He rarely left the area and never without notice. He loved rallying with close friends, a tight-knit group who said he had a twinkle in the eye, always up for the next race or engine tweak. But after that Thursday morning, the rhythm broke. Michael Gaine, a man defined by routine, simply vanished. No warning, no struggle, just silence. Imagine Kenmare, a town where farm work, rally weekends, and church mornings create the pulse of every life. Michael Gaine lived right at that heart of it, quietly, reliably, like part of the landscape. At the Centra, staff would see him daily, often ordering the same roll, same drink, exchanging a warm nod that said, "Good morning." He was well known, respected, but not flashy. He never was the loudest voice, but somehow his calm presence filled a room. At cattle marts and rural fairs, he was a familiar sight, chatting quietly with farmers, inspecting sheep, offering advice. No showboating, just experienced, thoughtful, and kind. A neighbor in these mountains once said, "Michael never caused trouble, just helped fix it." His closest bonds lay in his rallying circle, a small group of friends who met at events like the Rally of the Lakes. After he disappeared, those friends felt his absence like missing a gear in their engine. "There's a piece missing from the five of us," one friend said, when his usual seat stayed empty and unclaimed. When Michael vanished, Kenmare didn't hesitate. Volunteers hundreds strong joined searches across bog, woodland, and rivers, even checking slurry tanks. Cars at rallies carried stickers saying, "Have you seen Mike?" Trust, grief, and hope wove together as the community that Michael had been quietly part of came alive in their fear and determination. He might have been private, but nobody in that town was immune to what happened. When the man who always said, "See you later," stopped returning, Kenmare responded like a family betrayed, searching, praying, waiting, and demanding answers. It all comes back to that moment, the cool dawn of Thursday, March 20th. Michael Gaine set out as he always did, boots crunching gravel, orange hat pulled low, leg braced behind him as he walked to his bronze Toyota RAV4. The plan: a quick stop in Kenmare, then back to Carrick East to tend to the sheep and cattle. At exactly 9:48 in the morning, he walked into Centra on Killarney Road, bought phone credit and a roll, exchanged a warm "see you later" with the cashier, and headed back to the RAV4. All captured calmly on CCTV, routine on its face, ordinary in every way. But when he drove off toward Mall's Gap, that familiar patter of his life halted. His drive should have taken him straight home, but he never arrived. No phone call, no sightings, no radio chatter. His wallet, keys, and phone left behind in the car, untouched, tell a silent story of someone who didn't plan to leave. For a man limited in mobility due to a leg injury that slowed his steps like a silent warning, disappearing wasn't part of his nature. It had to be something else. A meeting, a confrontation, something out of the routine. And yet, when the day ended, there was no farmer Gaine feeding sheep or calling out to cattle. Just an empty farmyard, cattle unmilked, and a silence that fell heavier than any fog rolling over the Kerry hills. In that final snapshot, 9:48 am on March 20th, the ordinary tipped into the horrifying. Routine died in the glare of CCTV, and Michael Gaine vanished into thin air. Michael Gaine was more than a farmer. He was a husband, a son, a friend built from quiet loyalty. He and Janice were inseparable. She once called him her best friend, not just in passing. They met in Kenmare when she traveled from Jakarta and built a life rooted in small moments, shared cups of tea at dawn, laughter whispered over weekday chores, and long walks across their 1,000-acre farm. Their marriage wasn't flashy, but it was real. And when Michael disappeared, Janice's words carried a fierce weight. "If we can't find Michael, I just don't know what I'm going to do." Then there was his mother, Sheila. Michael lived with her until she passed in February. Family sources say her death left a void in his world, a loss so profound that even the machinery on the farm seemed quieter without her steady presence. They say a man is known by the company he keeps. For Michael, that included a tight circle of rally-driving friends. They shared laughs at muddy tracks and cheered engines roaring across bog and gravel. One friend summed it up best: "There's a piece missing from the five of us." Their bond was carved in dear shifts and quiet encouragement. And then there was Michael Kelly, the farmhand, U.S. national in his early 50s. He'd lived on the farm rent-free for years, tinkering with quad bikes and hauling feed. On the surface, he was just part of the routine. Beneath it, that's where questions began to flicker. Gardai interviewed him. No charges yet, but his presence added an uneasy thread to Michael's otherwise rooted life. Michael's world was made of trust. The trust of a wife standing by his side, a mother sharing her final months, friends swapping engine grease, and a stranger offered shelter. But when that trust shattered, when the morning ended in silence, it echoed through every relationship he'd built. Michael Gaine's life revolved around the farm at Carrick East. Every dawn he'd tend to sheep and cattle, checking fences, repairing machinery, scraping ice off troughs, routine tasks in muddy boots. His world was simple, steady, until the day it wasn't. He was a man of habit, but not of strength. Michael struggled with knee pain. Locals say his injured leg limited him to short walks. Larger tracts of land required his quad bike, which was broken the morning he disappeared. Turn zero search 0, and his mobility was a constant concern. Turn zero search 26. This wasn't a wanderer. Every step was measured, and every movement intentional. Then came the unexpected. A man rooted in routine, but that very routine ended on March 20th. The quad was out of order, limiting his options. He left the farm, drove to Centra as usual, then vanished. If he'd planned to walk away, why disrupt that routine rather than drive across his 1,000-acre land? If there'd been struggle, where were the signs? Slurry tanks were drained and every field searched. Mountains, bogs, streams painstakingly combed, but nothing was found, and no trace of struggle in the yard. A tool chest left shut, gates still latched. The land he managed so carefully gave no blood, no signs, no answers. Michael's fragility, his pain, his limitations should have kept him close by. Instead, it begs the question: how far was he forced from home? He wasn't a man who could disappear on his own. A single misstep meant trouble, so what really happened on that fateful Thursday? As the days turned into weeks, the town of Kenmare shifted from quiet concern to relentless action. What started as a missing person case became something deeper, heavier. An entire community searching for a man they all knew but suddenly couldn't find. Within days of Michael Gaine's disappearance, Gardai launched a full-scale investigation. Over 130 people gave formal statements. More than 200 hours of CCTV and dash cam footage were reviewed, painstakingly scanned frame by frame. Every petrol station, backroad, and farm gate in and around Kenmare was examined for a clue. Locals didn't sit still. Hundreds of volunteers combed the land on foot, in cars, on horseback. Fields were crossed, rivers searched, slurry tanks emptied, hedges pulled apart inch by inch. The Irish Army joined in. So did mountain rescue teams. Specialist canine units were brought in from as far as Cork. The search was massive, coordinated, desperate. But it wasn't just the size of the effort, it was the tone. This wasn't just about a missing man. This was about Michael, a neighbor, a friend, a man who never caused harm, never raised his voice, never missed a morning at the shop. His face appeared on posters, rally cars, and pub walls. Every sticker read the same: "Have you seen Mike?" But the silence never broke. By the end of April, Gardai made it official. The case was no longer a disappearance, it was a homicide. The town's hope cracked. What once felt like a strange accident or sudden illness had shifted into something darker, something violent, something that didn't belong in a place like Kenmare. Michael Gaine, the man of habit and kindness, had been taken, and now the entire community was left asking, where is he? and who did this to him. Kenmare hadn't just lost a farmer, it had lost a friend, a neighbor, a familiar silhouette in the morning light. Michael Gaine was the guy you waved to at the shop, the quiet soul whose kindness never asked for spotlight. When he vanished, the town felt a collective ache. Imagine the silence in that farmhouse, the unlocked doors, the empty chairs, the kitchen quiet where life once hummed. His cattle went unfed, his sheep unherded. The land lay dormant, reflecting a deeper void in every heart that knew him. In the rally world, his absence was like missing a heartbeat. Engines roared through the lake's event, but one engine was silent. "There's a piece missing from the five of us," his friend said, voice cracking like gravel. On social media and in town, messages poured through with desperate hope. "He's always been here, he has to come back." Every shared memory of the orange hat, the waves at Centra, the voice saying, "See you later," became a prayer wrapped in remembrance. By April's end, when Gardaí confirmed the case was now a homicide, grief shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was anger, pain, and one question dominating every whispered conversation: who took Michael Gaine from us? His routine life, simple, dependable, rooted in soil and soul, was gone. In its place stood a painful truth. Something unnatural had ripped him away, and the emptiness he left behind proved that this was no ordinary story. It was a tragedy that demanded answers. The gravel drive sits undisturbed. The gate at Carrick East swings gently in the breeze, and somewhere between 9:48 in the morning and that final moment of silence, something irreversible happened. Michael Gaine didn't just vanish. He was taken, removed, hidden from a life he built inch by inch, acre by acre, over decades of quiet loyalty. But what exactly happened after that Centra visit? Who was waiting on that farm? Did Michael walk into a trap, or was the decision made long before that morning? In part 2, we retrace every step of that final day. We break down the timeline. We examine the farm. We follow the investigation as Gardaí dig deeper into the shadows behind the silence. And we ask the hardest question yet: did Michael know his killer?